Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Wednesday, February 17th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Back open, but for how long? That is the question tonight surrounding the county's largest vaccination superstation. It comes as another 539 coronavirus cases are being reported in the county, along with 57 deaths. These case numbers are smaller than they've been in recent days, but with the high number of deaths and vaccine doses in high demand, health officials are scrambling to meet the need. KPBS reporter John Carroll begins our coverage.
The vaccination superstation at Petco Park reopened today. Whether it remains open is an open question.
We have received word that several shipments that were scheduled to arrive this week will not be arriving due to weather.
In the county's Wednesday news conference, Supervisor Nathan Fletcher said beginning tomorrow, the county will likely have to pause vaccinations at some locations. He didn't say which ones. Fletcher says the county will also have to reschedule some existing appointments. But he says supply chain issues should work themselves out over the next week to 10 days. Then, Fletcher says the county, along with other vaccine distributors, will throttle back up and move into the next tier of recipients.
We do believe and have a high degree of confidence that at the first week of March, we will be able to move into that first tier of essential workers, teachers, food and agriculture, and law enforcement.
At the state level, Governor Newsom continued his tour of vaccination sites.
These things don't just magically arrive in the grocery store.
Newsom was in Coachella today, and he broke some news. He's reached a deal with lawmakers on small business grants, one-time $600 stimulus checks for low-income Californians, and housing for farm workers who've gotten COVID. The $24 million program will pay for farm and food processing workers to stay in hotels if they contract the virus and have no place to quarantine. Newsom also talked about the state's rapid improvement in COVID numbers. 1
month ago today, we had 11.3% positivity in the state of California. Today, it's 3.3%. 1 month ago today, we had 42,000 reported cases. Today, just over 4,000.
Newsom says over the last 2 weeks, there's been a 38% reduction in the number of people hospitalized with COVID-19. Supervisor Fletcher reported the same positive situation for San Diego County, the numbers continuing to move in the right direction. Like Fletcher, the governor says the state is ready to ramp vaccinations way up as soon as the weather cooperates and the federal government increases its allocation to California. John Carroll, KPBS News.
In Chula Vista, first responders are delivering vaccinations to seniors just steps away from their homes. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman has more on the new program that aims to help those at greatest risk from coronavirus.
Okay, congratulations.
It's great. I mean, it's wonderful to have this service done here for all the seniors.
The Chula Vista Fire Department is bringing vaccinations directly to South Bay seniors, part of an effort called Operation Immunity. Captain Linda D'Orsi is with the Chula Vista Fire Department.
Well, they might not otherwise get their vaccination if we didn't come to them.
Wednesday, crews were at Terry's Mobile Home Park in Chula Vista, where some say they were worried about where to get their shots.
I just appreciate, they come here and help us out, so we don't have to worry about go somewhere and, looking for transportation. A lot of people can drive over here, the people who live here.
Teams were prepared to deliver around 200 vaccinations.
Are you ready for the phone?
That was great for all this community because most of them, it's, this park, it's 55 and older. So we're here elderly people.
Okay, that's it. What? You already did it? Yeah.
The program recently started and is a partnership between Chula Vista Fire and the county. Crews are hitting different apartment buildings, and they are even doing vaccinations to homebound seniors.
No, we definitely wanted to get involved. We wanted to be at the forefront. We're one of the first to do this. We've done at least five separate complexes, and we have more slated on the calendar to do. So we're trying to make it out to all of them, depending on how much vaccine we are given.
Paramedics are delivering shots, and EMTs are currently being trained to expand the ranks of vaccinators. Homebound seniors over 65 in Chula Vista can call 619-476-2397 to schedule an appointment for a vaccination. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
And we have more information at kpbs.org. Just click on the Vaccines tab on our homepage and you'll find a searchable map with clinic locations and links to make an appointment if you're eligible. Millions of dollars of rent relief has been approved for Chula Vista residents. On Tuesday, the Chula Vista City Council voted to provide more than $16 million for renters to help pay back rent and other missed payments because of financial hardship due to COVID. The relief fund goes beyond just rent and can also help toward paying utility bills. An eviction moratorium currently protects renters from eviction for not paying rent, but the back rent does accumulate. Residents can see if they qualify by visiting a website set up by the City of Chula Vista or by calling. Some prominent researchers, including two from San Diego, are calling on federal officials to do a better job at explaining how COVID-19 spreads. Here's KPBS reporter Eric Anderson.
Airborne transmission is probably the way most people contract COVID-19. UCSD atmospheric chemist Kim Prather says tiny aerosols can fill the air in a poorly ventilated room, allowing for transmission even after an infected person leaves the space.
Indoors, aerosols are like being in the room with a smoker. There's no other way to describe it. They float out. They're produced just by simply speaking, not by coughs or sneezes. They just come out of people when they're talking.
Prather and a dozen other researchers are asking the Centers for Disease Control to update safety guidance to acknowledge that risk.
I honestly believe that once, and this is the whole point of the letter, I honestly believe that once we acknowledge it's in the air, that's the main way it's getting to us, then we can implement all the measures that we need to make. We can give the proper, put in the proper infrastructure. We can tell people how to make sure their air is clean.
Prather says adequate masks, better ventilation, and indoor HEPA filters can go a long way toward lowering the risk inside. Don Milton of the University of Maryland is among the academicians and doctors asking the CDC to acknowledge the airborne risk.
The country's moving forward to tackle this pandemic, ramping up vaccines, expanding the use of masks, and addressing the disparate impacts of the virus on people of color. But to be really successful, we must finally recognize inhalation exposure.
The scientists joined several prominent health organizations to ask the government to create guidelines reducing the risk of transmission for workers. Federal officials indicate they are not changing their approach. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Kevin Faulconer is criticizing Governor Gavin Newsom's handling of school closures as he campaigns to replace him in a recall.
I stand with frustrated parents. I stand with them saying public schools need to safely reopen now. Not next month, not next year, now. The CDC agrees. Dr. Fauci agrees.
The former San Diego mayor spoke in front of a closed high school in San Francisco today. Yesterday, Newsom said the state is making progress in creating a framework for bringing elementary students back to classrooms safely, but that negotiations are stubborn. Some elementary schools in Los Angeles County are reopening this week after meeting the state's threshold for allowing in-person learning. A new study shows Black students in San Diego and across the state are still far more likely to receive harsh discipline than their white peers. KPBS education reporter Joe Hung explains how Black students in California are more often suspended, expelled, and even physically restrained at public schools.
The new study released Wednesday found that gaps in suspension and expulsion rates are highest for Black boys, foster children, and students experiencing homelessness. Luke Wood is a professor of education at San Diego State University and one of the lead researchers for the study. He said during a virtual presentation that the disparities exist for Black students across all grade levels.
When we look at this, what we find is that the highest rates of suspension disparity is not in high school, it's not in middle school, it's not even in latter elementary. It's in early childhood education, kindergarten through third grade, where Black boys are 522% more likely to be suspended than their peers.
Perhaps most disturbing were findings on how often physical restraints and seclusions are used on Black students.
I talked about the mechanical restraints. Again, only 5.3% of the population, but 31.4% of those subject to mechanical restraints. This is 2021. What are we doing?
Wood singled out San Diego Unified, saying the district has failed to reduce suspension rates for Black students despite a lot of rhetoric from outgoing Superintendent Cindy Martin on the issue. In fact, according to state data, the district's suspension rate for Black students increased between 2014 and 2019 from 7.8 to 8.6%.
In San Diego Unified and in San Diego County in general, we have some of the best schools in the country. We do. We have schools that overwhelmingly serve a large percentage of students well. However, that being said, when it comes to serving Black students, they don't do as well.
One of those schools is Montgomery Middle School in the Vista neighborhood. More than a third of its Black students were suspended during the 2018-2019 school year. District spokeswoman Maureen McGee said no district officials were available to comment on camera for the story. Instead, she sent a statement saying the racial disparities for school discipline at San Diego Unified are consistent with statewide disparities. Her statement went on to say that the district has pioneered restorative justice programs to reduce the disparities and that it is currently working to reform its police department to ensure all students feel safe on campus. Joe Hong, KPBS News.
It's been 8 months since the superintendent was fired at the O'Farrell Charter School in southeastern San Diego, but a legal fight continues. Here's iNews Source investigative reporter Jennifer Bowman with more.
The O'Farrell School fired Jonathan Dean without cause in June, making him eligible for a $250,000 severance payment. But the school hasn't paid up, and Dean is now seeking the money through private arbitration. Officials won't say why Dean was fired. A news source previously found the school was investigating him for misconduct allegations involving a female staffer. Dean denies the claims. The O'Farrell board has regularly met in closed-door sessions to discuss the ongoing litigation. Financial records show the school has spent at least $60,000 on legal services since August. For KPBS, I'm iNews Source investigative reporter Jennifer Bowman.
And for more on this story, go to inewssource.org. iNews Source is an independent nonprofit partner of KPBS. San Diego Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez has introduced a bill aimed at improving worker conditions at warehouse distribution centers. The goal is to minimize on-the-job injuries and prevent worker exploitation related to quota systems. Assembly Bill 701 would require employers to disclose work quotas and would prevent employees from being punished for failing to meet them. The bill would also require Cal OSHA to propose new statewide standards to minimize injury and illness risks for warehouse employees. Trinell Price, one of the original founders of the San Diego Black Panther Party, has died. KPBS's Amita Sharma spoke with Price in recent years about the police brutality and community poverty that spawned the local Black Power movement in the late 1960s. And she recently spoke to others in the movement about Price's legacy.
Trinell Price wore the trademark Black Panther beret almost as a second skin. It represented the antidote to what he had witnessed and lived. With fierce eyes, a strong voice, and a desire to convey with precision what it meant to be black or brown in San Diego in 1967, Price described a time when the city's racial fault lines ran deep.
San Diego is a conservative city, and most people outside of the black community here in San Diego did not want any interaction with the people in the inner cities, the people in Southeast San Diego, the people in Logan Heights.
Price grew up in southeastern San Diego during the 1950s and 60s. Even though the city's racial lines were unmarked, Price said police harassed them if they strayed beyond those borders.
If we were accosted by the San Diego Police Department for whatever reason, pick one, we are usually taken down by Father Joe's at the lumber yards. And we were brutalized. You know, we were beaten or talked down to or cussed out.
So Price was enthusiastic as a 17-year-old San Diego State student in 1967 when the National Black Panther Party in Oakland asked the Black Student Union at the university to form a local chapter.
Because it allowed me an opportunity to help the Black community.
And help, he said, was long overdue. Life within southeastern San Diego was a tale of duality. While it was in the midst of a vibrant revival,
coming out with new types of music and new types of dress and things of that nature. So it was a very upbeat, robust society.
The flip side of this renaissance were civil rights protests, highlighting poverty rooted in high unemployment and substandard schools.
There was a lot of social unrest, a lot of disappointment, and in the Black neighborhoods and Black communities throughout the United States. San Diego was not any different.
From the gate, Price said the new local Black Panthers fed the elderly, children, and homeless people. They also started community health clinics. Those programs stemmed from the Black Panthers' strategy to educate, employ, house African Americans, and demand that government treated them fairly.
He taught basically the 10-point platform and what it meant. You know.
Fellow original San Diego Black Panther Henry Wallace met Price when they were teenagers in the early days of the local party at SDSU.
He'd be so studious with his little briefcase. He was a very serious young man. And we used to laugh and mess with him.
Poor health prevented Price from fully reprising that role when the local Black Panthers reactivated in 2017 after Donald Trump was elected president. But current San Diego Black Panther chairman Robert Williams said he still learned a lot about the importance of education and lifelong curiosity, among other things, from just sitting at Price's feet.
Trinell Price was key in terms of helping individuals that come to the struggle, as well as community members, recognize how powerful we can be as a collective.
I never got to ask Price about the racial justice protests last year following the death of George Floyd under the knee of a Minneapolis police officer, but he had long called for police to reflect deeply about how they interact with communities of color.
If they do that, God willing, that they'll realize that everybody has a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and they should be treated otherwise. The question is about respect, that they think that a lot of police officers, that people in the community should fear them and things of that nature. No man should fear another man.
Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
A memorial service for Trinell Price is scheduled this Saturday at 11 a.m. at New Seasons Church in Spring Valley. Conservative talk show host Rush Limbaugh has died. Limbaugh's wife made the announcement on his radio show this morning. He had been battling stage 4 lung cancer since February 2020. Former President Trump awarded Limbaugh the Presidential Medal of Freedom the day after his diagnosis. Limbaugh began his nationally syndicated conservative political radio show back in 1988. His politics made him a polarizing media figure. Rush Limbaugh was 70 years old. That winter storm that's delaying vaccine shipments is also crippling the power grid in Texas. Nearly 3.4 million customers are still without power. As Nadia Romero reports, the state is now facing a widespread emergency.
Frustration.
It's exhausting. This 3 days feels like it's been 200 years.
And desperation mounting.
When we went into the store,
They barely had anything. There was barely any food.
As millions of Texans are left in the dark.
No telling when it's going to come on.
And in the cold.
So we've just been trying to make it through, stay warm, and just stay in the houses.
A weekend winter storm brought unusually frigid temperatures to much of the central U.S., straining the infrastructure in the area. Texas Governor Greg Abbott lays much of the blame on ERCOT, the power company servicing large swaths of the state.
They showed that they were not reliable. These are experts, these are engineers in the power industry. These aren't bureaucrats or whatever the case may be. These are specialists. And government has to rely upon these specialists to be able to deliver in these types of situations.
The CEO of ERCOT says the rolling outages actually saved the system from an uncontrolled blackout. It's a cold comfort for customers bracing for yet another drop in temperatures.
I am upset, but what can you do? You know, I really just trust in God to help me.
The National Weather Service is forecasting up to a ½ an inch of ice over the next 3 days from Texas to Virginia.
The good news is that once the weather moves on around Friday, it'll be pleasant outside. The roads will be passable, and so folks will be able to at least get out of their homes, and I think that'll be a relief.
Nadia Romero, KPBS News.
California ISO tweeted out a message encouraging Californians to conserve power to help others across the country affected by the extreme winter weather.
And here's a look at our weather headlines. Well, it looks like dry weather will prevail through the week and through the weekend. And we'll see a little bit of a warming trend through Friday. And then the next system swings down through California during the day on Saturday. That'll bring us some slightly cooler weather and some stronger winds. But right after that, we'll be looking at a warm-up from Sunday into the beginning of next week, and temperatures will be well above average. Here's a look at our weather for tonight. 39 in Oceanside, 48 in San Diego, Ramona cooling down to 41, and El Cajon at 46, Borrego Springs about 44 degrees. As we look at the weather for Thursday, well, we have high pressure in control, so quiet weather here, still a little cool in the mountains and into the deserts, but we're quite pleasant here. Temperature is 67 in Oceanside. San Diego hits 69, so some above average temperatures. El Cajon 70 and Ramona's at 64. Borrego Springs is at 66 and Mount Laguna a cool 42. The weather on Friday, well, it's dry. All the action precipitation-wise well to our north, and we'll be looking at some comfortable temperatures. Here's the extended forecast. Temperatures in the mid-60s through Friday, then a little cooler there Saturday, but then it warms right up again. Sunday to Monday, we're in the 70s. Inland areas, quite pleasant, and then the system comes through Saturday. Look at the warm-up here Sunday into Monday. And as we check out the mountains, yeah, a little bit cool there Thursday with a gusty breeze. Next system's through on Saturday. And as we take you out to the deserts, temperatures will be on the rise through Saturday. Temperatures come down just a tad Sunday, and then pleasant on Monday. And for KPBS News, I am meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
Today is Ash Wednesday, which marks the start of Lent, but this year it looks a little different. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer shows us the changes San Diego priests are making to keep their parishioners safe.
Ash Wednesday signifies the start of Lent for many Christians worldwide, and typically parishioners are able to receive ashes on their forehead, usually placed by a priest's thumb to mark a day of repentance. But this year is a little different for many churches, according to Father Peter Navarra at St. Joseph Cathedral.
The prayer called the prayer of repentance, the prayer over the ashes, will be said only once, and then the people will come, and we are using Q-tips to mark the cross on the people's foreheads.
The Vatican encouraged priests to offer the ashes with a contactless motion by sprinkling them on the top of parishioners' heads, as Pope Francis did earlier today. But the Roman Catholic Diocese of San Diego chose to have all their priests use Q-tips to apply the ashes. St. Joseph Cathedral facility staff member Benito Gutierrez received his mark of the cross indoors.
Pues se siente bien porque es un día especial para los católicos.
Well, it feels good because it's a special day for Catholics. It reminds us that we have to believe in the gospel, repent, change our lives, and it reminds us that we are dust and we are going back to dust. Some churches in San Diego County announced they will forego the ashes entirely, while others are sending ashes in envelopes to their faithful to use during online services. But at St. Joseph Cathedral, Father Navarra says he's grateful to have indoor services again and is optimistic for the future.
I had the first vaccine. Most priests have had 2 vaccines. A lot of our people here are seniors. They already had their vaccines, including my deacons. They've had their vaccines. So I'm hoping that by Easter, I'm hoping that we will allow more people to come.
Under current rules, even with vaccinations, indoor church services remain limited to 25% of a building's capacity. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
Spring is here, or rather spring training for the Padres, that is. Pitchers and catchers reported today to the team's facility in Peoria, Arizona. Other position players are due next Monday. Enhanced health and safety protocols are in place because of the pandemic. Among the new pitching acquisitions in camp, Joe Musgrove, Yu Darvish, and Blake Snell. Season open is April 1st at Petco Park against the Diamondbacks. And here's another look at today's top story. The Petco Park Vaccination Superstation is back open, but more sites could be forced to be put on pause as soon as tomorrow. County Supervisor Chair Nathan Fletcher says the severe winter weather across much of the country has led to more delays in expected vaccine shipments. He added that appointments may have to be rescheduled at some locations starting tomorrow. Last week's delayed Moderna shipment forced the Petco Park site to close for 3 days. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.